Okay, so welcome back. It's been quite some time since we talked about security topics, and I wanted to ramp this off again, this podcast, so that those of you who have been waiting for some new additions can finally listen to some new podcasts that are going on. There's a lot that's been going on in the last year. A lot of internal stuff, restructuring, focusing in on specific topics. Now, in case you haven't seen the website, that's at https hackdevnet.org. There's a few different products that we're doing. My name is Mike Goedicker. I'm the CEO and founder of HackDevNet in HDN International, as well as the Cyber Security Intelligence Academy and the different courses that we offer there. But today, the topic is more on some of the research that we're doing and that maybe some of you have heard in the past before. And this digresses a little bit from the main topics that we're discussing in presentations for some of the MSS areas that you've probably read or seen and listened to, the stuff that I posted on our HackDevNet or HDN International YouTube channel. So thanks if you've heard that, and if not, let's get into the topics. So some of the research that we're currently working on right now are twofold things. The first off is the enormous amount of CVEs or exploitable servers and shared servers that we find every day at any given time that raises a lot of concerns about the widespread use of cloud-based services from Azure, Amazon, and Google. But there's also other hosters that are out there that apparently don't seem to be doing the jobs that they should be doing, and they don't check to make sure that people that use those shared servers have IPs that are not listed as attack sources on Firehole, open source, and closed source types of intelligence feeds, some of which that we manufacture and integrate into all of our products. And this is something that I want to talk about today. So exploitable cloud services that are used for hybrid warfare and cyber espionage-based activities by different nation states, and the proxy war topics that I discuss often enough in the MSS series, as well as in other different types of security conferences that I'm at. So the other thing, and this is just as widespread as the use of cloud infrastructure and open cloud or public cloud-based infrastructures from Azure, which is Microsoft, from Google, and from AWS, which is Amazon, for the widespread use of infections, malicious code, as well as GitHub and others and Dropbox, as well as WeTransfer, that are used to infect smartphones, smart devices, IoT-based devices, laptops, and a lot of different types of endpoints. So the other thing is the widespread use and the high risks of social media today in regards to fake news, fake science, and how some of these things, or many of these things, are pushing public discourse in a way, shape, or form that is not something that's conducive to a democracy. Now, I think the jury is split on whether this is as big a topic as I think it is. I think it is from the researcher's perspective because we see the results of what these things are doing every day when we observe how fake news and false news is being used as espionage weapons and as counterintelligence towards different nation states and basically interest groups. And the interesting point here is that social media is basically a sales tool. Social media, contrary to its definition, social media is not really about pushing media to in a social context or in a cultural context, but it uses the widespread networks that we build over time to basically sell advertising. Now, that may not be new to people, or it may be new to everyone, but the reason why this is very, very important in regards to fake news, false news, issues with democratic processes, and this is not a political issue, this is more of a national security issue. So before anyone has a thought about this is going to be about Republicans or Democrats, That's not the case, and I'm not even interested in having that discussion because both parties and everyone else out there for interest groups are all using social media to the detriment of a lot of different democratic processes for different countries. So this is not a political discussion. This is a national security discussion or a general security topic discussion about threats and risks that are out there. So when we talk about risks and threats, there's a few different things that I've published on the risk or multidimensional risk and threat theory, which basically states that risks and threats are related to each other within their own dimensions or levels or layers, but they're also dependent or linked to other risks and threats on multiple different layers and depths. This is relevant because they are connected in different ways that we don't always understand. And machine learning doesn't understand the context of why these differences make sense and how these links actually come together. So machine learning and artificial intelligence doesn't resolve this issue because threats and risks are interlinked and they are multidimensional. And there are different ways and aspects of a threat and risk that may or may not pertain to a specific target. So this contextual information is not something that machine learning and artificial intelligence picks up. That's because that's what some of the limitations are of these things, regardless of what other people are saying about the use cases for machine learning and artificial intelligence. So in the specific risks of fake news, false news, and also fake science, which is really, really bad, is when we observe a lot of these different types of websites that are hosting these things, we tend to find out that these servers are shared infrastructure and point back to the same issues we have with cloud infrastructure, in that they are very often registered as attack sources. And it's pretty interesting when you take a look at those things from an IP domain-based perspective. So on the one hand, from a security perspective, we are interested in finding out what these different websites are, where they're hosted, and if they are known and registered attack sources. The other thing that we also want to know is who's actually managing these servers, where are they popping up, in which different countries. Is there a trend that we can see from a cyber risk intelligence perspective? And is that link that we see relevant to different campaigns, to APT groups, to nation states, etc.? In more often cases than not, any type of risk or threat defense that's based off of IOCs or indicators of compromise brings us to the issue that IOCs have a very, very limited shelf life. Often this shelf life is in minutes to maybe an hour or two, and at tops maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then that's pretty much the end of the life cycle for an IOC. So IOCs can quickly change, and you compile very big databases of these IOCs, these indicators. And since you're copying so much information, it completely explodes the use case of a small database that can be used to store these different types of signatures. So on the other hand, when we take a look at these IOCs, which are specifically the IPs, the domains, and we're talking about IP version 4 and IP version 6, unfortunately, there's still a lot of defense mechanisms out there that do not include IP version 6. We actually do. So if you use our VPN products or our endpoint security products with integrated risk intelligence, as well as our firewalls and the SCA agents, they all have integration of domains. They have integration for IP version 4 and IP version 6. And these are the main areas that we concentrate on and co-locate to the different campaigns and APT groups out there. We also capture information on over 1 billion data sets of domains. And the current amount of domains that we're looking at every day is currently around 414 million domains, with a trend going upwards between 900,000 to about 1.2 million per week. So these domains are changing, and the reason why they change is obviously we have different domain types, but also those different types of attack groups that use these domains, they constantly change them because these are registered IOCs, and if you have a signature that blocks these things, then these attack groups have an interest in interchanging these domains as often as possible so that any type of defense that you have that is based off that IOC or domain name is pretty much defunct. That completely changes when you're looking at IP version 6 and IP version 4 IPs. More often than not, since we have the same issues of shared cloud infrastructure, there are certain limitations in IP version 4. There's approximately 4.1, 4.2 billion IPs that we have for IP version 4, and we have multiple billions for IP version 6. So the trend is now going towards IP version 6, and we see a lot of these attack domains going towards IP version 6, which is the reason why we also use this to block. And we think this will grow exponentially, if not by the end of this year, towards the beginning of Q1 next year in 2022. So when we talk about fake news and false news, and we also talk about fake science, these websites, on the one hand, are hosted off of compromised and shared servers that are registered attack sources. They're also financed by proxies or by directed interest groups that take money out and are paid by various different other types of groups, whether they're black ops, whether they want to remain hidden, or whether they're pushing a specific agenda, a product, a service, or maybe even a political view of something, like, for instance, anti-vaccination or pro-vaccination, Black Lives Matter, and all these other types of things that are politically used social movements that have so much energy in them and emotion that they are predefined and de facto ways of these interest groups using these things to basically push their narratives, which is then creating something that profits them, whether it's you buying their products, whether it's the different types of hats or T-shirts or signs or this or that, or whether you buy their products because you associate them with something that you also approve of. More often than not, a lot of this propaganda and a lot of this social engineering-based counterintelligence stuff, and you can't call it anything else but counterintelligence, is basically an espionage cyber weapon that is used to push public discourse to sell products. And it's getting pretty sick because, the one hand, you sell products if you're associated with this interest group, which you pay the advertising on social media for. And as we've discussed, social media is an advertising platform. It's not interested in you connecting with family. It's not interested in you connecting with friends. It is only interested in you using this service as long as possible, and it keeps you linked to it. It keeps you dependent on it via different means and ways, just like people that can't stop gambling. These types of websites have the same technology to keep you dependent on using the service, whether that's reality or not. The reality is that social media does more harm than good currently right now, and it's more harm rather than it is providing a value. But since a lot of people are getting pushed to social media, and these social platforms push their own narratives to sell their own platforms, you think everybody's on, for instance, Facebook, when in reality, there may be millions and maybe billions of people on Facebook, but 80% of them don't really use Facebook that much, or they use it just for pinpoint communications, and everything else like the advertising and all that other stuff they're not really interested in. But for that 10, 20%, maybe 30% of people that use social media for all their information, it's a very dangerous thing. And again, this is not a political thing. It has nothing to do with politics. If you want to associate this discussion with politics, you obviously don't understand the problem, and I don't want to discuss this with you because the issue that we have here is something different. If you're looking for news or quote-unquote facts on a platform that is built to sell you what it thinks you want and to make money off you and to make money off your interests, that platform is not a platform that is built on the truth. It's not used for the truth. It's not interested in the truth. It's only interested in creating emotional responses to keep you addicted to it. And it also is only interested in eliciting the emotional responses for you to buy services off this platform. So the people that sell their services on this platform, they pay the platform for that access to you, and you are the product. Now, a lot of people can't disassociate this fact with what's really going on social media. Everybody uses their own political and their own public or their own private opinions to push a narrative that they think is or isn't the truth. And the issue is, since we have become all so polarized with social media, and social media is, in essence, pretty much everything on social media is fake, unless you know people personally that you're connecting with and you're having conversations about things that are facts that have nothing to do with politics or with one specific opinion or another opinion. Anything else that's on that social media platform that is a product, that is politics, or that is this or that is that, or even people posing as veterans, non-veterans, as Republicans, Democrats, as this nation, that nation, or this interest or that interest, all these things are artificially manufactured to get you hooked to the platform and to sell you a product. And you are the product. You are the customer. So why is fake news and false news so popular? Well, the thing is, we talked about machine learning and artificial intelligence in IOCs. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are also used on social media. And this is one of the reasons how we see why machine learning and artificial intelligence are so damn dangerous to a critically thinking society, and about getting information about what you think or what you'd like to form as the truth. So machine learning gives you more of what it thinks you want, and the algorithm is very, very specific. It's very narrowed down to a specific use case that requires specific information. Anything that's outside of that parameter, it doesn't understand, and it will make wrong decisions. And since social media is a social platform, it will sell you more rather than sell you less. So it'll sell you more often the things that you're not even interested in because you clicked on something, and because you clicked on something, it was registered for your profile that you clicked on this, and that is automatically added to the list of filters for things that you are interested in according to this algorithm, and it'll keep on giving you this because you might buy something the more it bombards you with this information. So it uses social engineering. And the use of social engineering is morally detestable, it's questionable, and it's very much on the border of illegal and legal. There's a gray area of social engineering that basically uses the vulnerabilities or the exploitability of us as humans and how we interact with other folks. So often in social media, you have what are called pseudo users, or Sybil users that basically pretend to be friends with you. They connect with you. These are profiles that are automatically generated from servers that were previously used for counterintelligence and for intelligence. They are now being used widespread for advertising, using the same types of intelligence and counterintelligence practices that usually only nation states use, but now social media platforms use the same technology, which is questionable at best and downright illegal at worst. So these things target you, they destabilize your sense of reality because they form it in ways that you may or may not be aware of because it's using social engineering. So they're people that you are befriended with, you think that they're real people, but in reality, and this happens only in social media, if we were meeting people personally face to face, we would know if these people are folks that we can get along with and that we agree with, or if they're just people that are weird or not our interest group and we want to stay away from. This whole entire filtering mechanism doesn't happen on social media, and it's not desired. So these fake users are created to push and continuously help the social media platforms sell different information to you, the product. And they will give you different types of information, whether real or not. In most cases, it's fake or it's lies, to elicit a social response or an emotional social response that will get you to click on things that you think your friends are also interested in. So when your friends, which are fake, go to a specific interest group that's paying for these fake users and to bring you to their websites or to their groups, it continuously brings you into a new sense of reality that has nothing really to do with how you think as a person. And it creates a different reality, an online persona or an online social group that may have nothing to do with how you originally thought before going onto social media. And this is something that's really starting to turn into different avenues of attacks. Some of these things, for instance, is that you are being sent or steered to groups that you normally don't talk to. It also basically sends propaganda to you, but it also targets you so that when you talk about something that's against this interest group, there are new pseudo users or symbol users that are spun up by a server that's in the background waiting for your responses. And as you respond to these different types of posts, these troll users will spin up and they will start attacking you, and they will be doing things like messaging bombardments so that you cannot even say your point of view because they constantly attack you. Or even worse, they'll attack you. They'll use things that you've said before, distort those things to make you look bad. Or in the worst case scenario, when that second level of escalation doesn't work, then the third level of escalation is where a person will spin up with one of these users, and they will start collecting information on you, open source intelligence, and they'll use that to make you look bad, to destroy you as a person on social media, to destroy your brand, or if you're a company, destroy your company by constantly sending troll armies and people that are trying to make you look bad because maybe one of your competition wants to finish you off, or you're against a specific interest, or there's specifically something that you're discrediting with facts, and this interest group doesn't want other people to listen to you. So the best way they can do that is to use these automated mechanisms with the pseudo or symbol users, with the servers in the background that are waiting for your responses in real time. They spin up these different fake users and they start to attack you. And if that doesn't work, the next level escalation is they have teams that are specifically hired to make you look bad, and they are usually in Eastern European countries, not because it's necessarily associated with Russia. That does happen quite often, but these groups are associated in countries like Eastern Europe or in India, sometimes in Asia, countries that don't have the same laws and constructs about exploits, that kind of stuff, but also different types of technologies that they can use that are questionable and ethically wrong to attack you and make you look bad and completely destroy you. Now, if you're a company, on one hand, it's bad enough that they can basically destroy your company through a barrage of these different types of things, which makes this cyberbullying or this troll-based attacks to companies something that's absolutely relevant for national security. Unfortunately, as a society, and I'm speaking about the entire world here, is we tend to adopt technologies much faster than we tend to adopt laws and regulations about what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable before these new technologies go online and into production. And that's an issue because as long as that's not the case, you'll have things like these cyberbullies and these troll armies that are being done, and they will basically be continuously attacking companies without any retribution. They won't be going to jail, etc. And I think we're reaching a time now as a planet in various different societies that we have to start looking at how we take a look at social media. Is it really social, or is it only what it really is? In my opinion, an advertising platform that keeps you addicted to it, which is morally questionable, which is legally questionable in my personal opinion. And it doesn't really add any value to discussions and connecting people in a way that is normal for a society or for social animals like human beings or the species. So that's the stuff that I want to talk about today, and I'd be really interested in what your point of views are in your part of the discussion. We're going to continuously doing some series on social media, the different types of attacks, some of the different types of attack use cases, and we'll also be talking about the use of social engineering because it destabilizes important aspects of life, like what do we understand in the truth, or what is our version of the truth? What is the version of truth in an accepted form nationally and internationally? How do we trust the truth and trust the information as truth, and how do we use that information? And these things are very skewed in social media because we don't have direct control of that. And we see a lot of different types of fake news and fake websites and fake science websites that push out propaganda and counterintelligence-based messages and even attack scientists and people that are trying to talk in an honest type of way. And these things are cyber weapons. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as there's no regulation, as long as there's no laws and the companies have no interest in curbing and vetting the advertisers and the messages, as far as I'm concerned, social media is a propaganda platform. It is basically a cyber weapon, and it is not something that we should be using because the risks are much higher than the value that it brings. And quite honestly, the value that social media brings is very, very questionable at best because it disenfranchises everyone with propaganda on there, and it changes and creates toxic narratives very, very quickly. We're sometimes talking about a day, even under a day, maybe 1, 2, 3 hours. And it makes folks that usually have a lot in common to focus on the differences that are emotional, hence propaganda, and powered by interest groups to sell more advertising and for you to buy their products. But the cost of that is destabilizing pretty much all the different societies out there in general. And it's pushing narratives and using social engineering to destabilize important aspects of life and social living. So with that, I'm going to conclude with this short session today, and let me know what you think. It's an important topic. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's a really interesting research topic.